Dad's voice still echoes in my head. Love doesn't come in boxes, Sarah. It comes in how I raised you. He said it on my birthday right after I handed him the cake I'd baked myself, because no one else remembered. That was the moment I stopped expecting anything from him. He stood there in his flannel shirt, half watching the game, half talking to me like I was a stranger who'd wandered into his living room. My brother Noah was beside him, laughing loud, golden. Dad looked at him the way you look at the sun. He looked at me like the shadow it cast. I remember smiling anyway. "It's okay, Dad," I said, even though it wasn't. I'd spent 3 hours making that cake, pretending he'd light the candles for me like he used to when I was little. But he just cut a slice, muttered a distracted, "Happy birthday, kiddo," and went back to cheering for Noah's new promotion. I was 27. Old enough to stop caring. Too young to stop hoping. When I left that night, I looked back through the living room window. Dad's arm around Noah, both of them laughing, faces glowing in the TV light. Mine reflected faintly in the glass. Alone, transparent, forgettable. That image never left me. It's what built the walls inside me, brick by quiet brick. 2 weeks later, Dad called. His voice cracked on the second word. "Sarah, I need your help. It's Noah. He stole everything." I remember standing by the sink, the phone pressed to my ear, the smell of dish soap mixing with something sharp and bitter in my chest. He'd never called me first before. Not once. "Everything?" I asked. "My savings. My retirement." He said it was for an investment. "Now it's all gone. I don't know what to do." His voice was trembling, desperate. And in that moment, a part of me felt pity. Another part didn't. I wanted to say "I told you so." I wanted to remind him of every time he told me Noah was just more ambitious. Every time he made me feel like a mistake he didn't mean to make. But instead I just said softly, "I'm sorry, Dad. I really am." Then I hung up and looked at my reflection in the kitchen window. Same glass, same ghost. But this time something inside me was awake. Something cold. Something quiet. Something patient. My name is Sarah. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever been treated like a stranger in your own family? The next morning I found myself driving to Dad's house without really deciding to. It was muscle memory. The same road I'd driven 100 times before, always hoping things would be different when I arrived. They never were. The porch light was still on even though it was daylight. Dad was sitting on the steps holding a folder of bank papers. His hands, the same hands that built our swing set when we were kids, were shaking. He looked up, eyes red. "He wiped me out, Sarah. Everything I had for retirement, gone." I sat down beside him. For a moment we just listened to the crows in the distance. I could almost pretend we were okay, like one of those father-daughter commercials that end in forgiveness. But the silence between us was too old for that. "How much did you give him?" I asked. He sighed. 75,000. Said it was a real estate opportunity. I trusted him. 75,000. That number echoed like a confession. When I asked for help with college years ago, he said he couldn't afford it. I worked nights at a diner to pay my tuition while Noah got a brand new car, for being responsible. I looked at the folder in his hands. I wanted to scream. I wanted to say, "You trusted him because he looked like you. Because he laughed like you. Because I never made you proud the way he did." But all I said was, "Do you want me to look at it?" He nodded, helpless. I went through the papers. Transfers, forged signatures, a fake company name. Noah had planned this. He wasn't careless, he was confident. Dad's voice cracked. "He won't even answer my calls. My own son, Sarah. My boy." He still called him my boy. That was the moment something inside me hardened. Not anger, not yet. Just the understanding that I would never be the one he'd truly see. That night I went home and opened my old laptop. I searched for Noah's name, his social media, his company, his friends. And what I found made my hands tremble. Photos of him at bars. Vacations. New suits. Captions about new beginnings, winning big, and trust only yourself. He wasn't hiding. He was bragging. With Dad's money. With our family's pain. I closed the laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. Eyes tired, lips pressed tight. I whispered, "You trusted the wrong child, Dad." And for the first time I didn't feel small anymore. I felt steady. I didn't know how yet, but I knew this. I wasn't going to let Noah walk away untouched. And this time, Dad would see what he'd raised. Not the daughter he ignored, but the woman who remembered everything. Revenge doesn't start with rage. It starts with silence. The kind that hums in your ears when you stop crying and something colder takes its place. For 3 days I said nothing. Dad called twice. Left a voicemail once. "Sarah, if you talk to your brother, tell him I just need to understand." Even now he wanted understanding, not justice. I didn't call back. Instead I gathered information. Noah had always been the family's golden child. Charming, impulsive, good at making people believe him. But behind that charm was carelessness, and I'd learned long ago to pay attention to what others ignored. He'd registered his fake company, Clearline Developments, under his name. Rookie mistake. The website was a $40 template. The address led to a rented P.O. box, and the contact number went straight to voicemail. But one thing stood out. The email domain was real, tied to a small digital marketing firm he'd once worked with. That was my thread. And I started pulling. I called the firm, pretending to be a potential client. The receptionist's tone shifted when I mentioned Noah's name. "Oh, him," she said. "He promised a partnership deal and disappeared. We're still missing a few thousand from him." I thanked her politely, hung up, and smiled for the first time in weeks. Noah wasn't just reckless, he was messy. And messy people leave trails. That night I dug deeper. Old group photos, LinkedIn updates, credit traces. Slowly, a map of his arrogance began to form. Unpaid invoices, casual fraud, and a handful of angry people too tired to chase him. He counted on silence. The same silence I'd lived in for years. But I wasn't the same anymore. I made a list. Names, amounts, dates. A pattern of deceit I could prove if I needed to. And at the top I wrote one sentence. Make him lose what he values most. Reputation, trust, and control. Because money wasn't the real currency in our family. It was pride. And Noah's entire identity was built on being the one everyone admired. So I waited. And while I waited, I visited Dad again. He was quieter this time. Smaller somehow. Sitting at the kitchen table with the TV off. A rare thing for him. He looked up as I walked in. "You think your brother's okay?" I met his eyes and said, "He will be." And I meant it, just not in the way he imagined. When I left that night, I noticed Dad's birthday card to Noah still pinned to the fridge, corners curling, written in his uneven handwriting. "To my son who never fails to make me proud." I stood there for a long time. Then I took it down, folded it once, and slipped it into my bag. People think revenge is about destruction. It isn't. It's about patience. The kind of patience that looks like forgiveness to everyone else. 2 weeks passed. Noah still hadn't spoken to Dad. I knew because Dad told me in that weary voice that used to scold me for worrying too much. "He'll come around, Sarah. He always does." I didn't answer. I just nodded even though I knew better. Men like Noah don't come around. They come back only when they need something else to take. That night I started a new email account. The name was plain. Wallace, and the message was short. "We're gathering information on recent scams tied to Clearline Developments. You may be entitled to compensation. Please contact us if you've had dealings with Noah Adams." I sent it to every person on my list. The investors, the ex-employers, the silent victims. And one by one the replies came. Anger has a way of finding its voice when someone finally listens. Within days I had a folder of evidence. Fake contracts, receipts, bank statements, screenshots of Noah promising returns. He'd been running small cons for years, hidden under the glow of his charisma. I didn't send any of it to the police. Not yet. That would have been too easy and too clean. Noah's strength was his image. So I chose to make him rot from the inside out. I reached out to a friend from college. Alex, a freelance journalist. He used to write for a small business ethics blog. I told him I'd found something interesting about a man running fake investments under a legitimate front. I didn't give Noah's name. Not yet. Just enough to pique curiosity. Alex agreed to meet. We sat in a dim cafe, rain tapping the window like a soft metronome. He leaned forward. You sure this is real? I slid the folder toward him. Every bit of it. He flipped through the papers. If this checks out, it's a great story. I smiled faintly. It will check out. That night I lay awake, staring at the ceiling. For the first time I didn't feel invisible. I felt like someone holding a secret too sharp to touch. But the strangest part was Dad. He kept calling Noah, leaving voicemails that sounded more like prayers. Son, please. I'm not mad. Just call me. Each one cracked something deeper in me, not anger but grief. Because even when Noah destroyed him, Dad's loyalty never wavered. He loved the knife because it once looked like his reflection. A week later Alex called. His voice was tight, almost excited. Sarah, your guy, Noah Adams, he's already under quiet review by a couple of state auditors. Your evidence just fits right in. I didn't breathe for a moment. He was falling and he didn't even know it yet. I hung up, sat in the dark, and whispered to no one. You're finally going to see me, Dad. You just don't know it yet. It began with whispers. That's how reputations fall. Not in one crash but in a series of soft, almost polite collapses. 2 weeks after Alex called, a small article appeared online. Just a local business blog. Nothing dramatic. The title read, Unregistered investment firm under investigation for fraud. Noah's name wasn't mentioned. Not yet. But the details were clear enough for anyone who knew him to connect the dots. The company name. The region. The anonymous sources. I waited. And like clockwork, the ripples began. A former client posted something vague on Facebook. It's always the ones who seem so trustworthy. Another commented, Are we talking about Clearline? Within a day the post vanished. But by then it was too late. The silence had cracked. Noah called Dad that night, the first time in months. I was at Dad's house when the phone rang. He answered with relief, voice trembling. Son. Finally. I could only hear Noah's voice faintly through the receiver. Sharp, panicked. Why are people saying my company's under investigation? What did you tell them? Dad blinked. What? Nothing. I haven't told anyone anything. Noah, what's happening? Noah cursed under his breath. It's lies. All lies. Someone's trying to ruin me. Dad's confusion turned to worry. You didn't do anything wrong, did you? Noah hung up. Dad sat there staring at the dial tone. I could feel the weight of realization pressing down on him, but he still couldn't name it. He looked at me. Sarah, you don't think. I shook my head gently. No, Dad. I don't think. I know. That night I watched from my car as Noah's house lights flickered on and off. His silhouette moved from window to window, pacing, agitated, calling people, deleting things. I should have felt triumphant. But instead I just felt empty. Because revenge, I was learning, doesn't heal. It only reveals. The next morning the second article dropped. This time with Noah's name bold in the headline. By noon his phone number was disconnected. By sunset half his clients had backed out. Alex texted me. You were right. He's done. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I turned off my phone and drove to Dad's. He was sitting in the dark again. This time no folder, no papers, just him and the quiet. Sarah, he said softly, I think Noah's in trouble. He's not answering me anymore. There was a pause. The kind that feels like a lifetime. I don't know what happened between you two, he added, but I wish I'd seen things clearer. That was the closest thing to an apology I'd ever get. And even though it wasn't enough, it still made something sting behind my eyes. I whispered, You will, Dad. Soon. And when I walked out into the night, I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. Because revenge wasn't finished. Not until Noah finally felt what I'd felt all my life. Invisible, unheard, and utterly alone. When I was a kid, Dad used to tell me, You always get what you deserve, Sarah. Life has a way of balancing things out. I used to believe him. Now I understood that life doesn't balance anything. People do. After the article broke, Noah disappeared for a while. His social media went silent. His voicemail was full. Even Dad stopped defending him, at least out loud. But I could still see the war in his eyes. He was torn between truth and love. Between blood and consequence. One evening I stopped by to drop off groceries. Dad was sitting at the kitchen table staring at his old family photo. The one with the three of us, him, Noah, and me, taken years ago at a lake. He ran a thumb over Noah's face. He's still my son, Sarah. He made mistakes, but he's my son. I nodded. I know, Dad. I didn't tell him I'd already spoken to Noah. Because Noah had finally called me. It was a short call, shaky with desperation. Sarah, did you talk to anyone about me? His voice was sharp, cracked around the edges. People are digging into my business, spreading lies. You always hated me, don't pretend you didn't. I took a slow breath. I didn't say a word, Noah. There was a pause, heavy and uncertain. Dad's ruined because of this. You happy now? That one made me smile faintly. Funny, he said the same thing when you stole from him. He went silent. Then hung up. And in that quiet click I felt something final settle inside me. The part of me that used to ache for his approval. Gone. The part that wanted Dad to see me. Fading. Because this wasn't about them anymore. It was about peace. About not being haunted by the question, why wasn't I enough? The next morning Alex messaged again. FY, Noah's former investors are filing civil claims. Might hit the local news. I stared at that text for a long time, then deleted it. I didn't want to watch the fallout anymore. I'd already seen the truth. And the truth was, I didn't need to destroy Noah completely. He was doing that all by himself. But I did one last thing. I mailed Dad an envelope, no return address. Inside, I placed copies of the transfer papers Noah forged, the fake business filings, and one photo. Noah at a bar holding up a glass of whiskey, captioned, "Here's to easy money." I never signed it. I didn't have to. A week later Dad called me. His voice was hollow. I saw the papers. All of it. How did you? I cut him off gently. It doesn't matter, Dad. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, I should have protected you better. And just like that, 27 years of silence cracked. When we hung up, I cried for the first time in months. Not out of sadness, but relief. Because now, finally, he saw me. It happened on a Sunday. The kind of afternoon that smells like rain and regret. Dad called and said softly, he's here. By the time I got to the house, Noah's car was already in the driveway. The same silver sedan Dad had co-signed for years ago. The one he said Noah deserved. I stood for a moment before going in, breathing in the metallic taste of thunder in the air. Through the open window I heard raised voices. You ruined me, Dad. You ruined yourself. Then silence. Then the sound of something breaking. A chair, maybe. I stepped inside. Noah was standing in the middle of the living room, eyes wild, face unshaven, clothes wrinkled. He looked smaller than I remembered. Dad sat at the table, weary, expression carved in stone. When Noah saw me, he laughed bitterly. Of course. You're here to. Always sneaking around, watching, judging. I didn't move. No, Noah. I'm just here. He glared. You think this is funny? Everyone's turned on me. My clients, my friends. Even the bank froze my account. He took a step closer. You did this, didn't you? Dad rose slowly. Noah, stop. But I didn't. I met Noah's eyes. The same eyes that used to look through me like I was glass. Do you really think the world owed you, Noah? I said quietly. Dad's money. Other people's trust. You always took because you thought taking made you stronger. He scoffed. You wouldn't understand. You never had to prove anything. Didn't I? I whispered. For a moment the house felt too small for all the years between us. All the unsaid things, the unclaimed love, the uneven scales. Dad's voice broke through. I believed in you both, he said. But only one of you ever acted like family. Noah turned to him, trembling. You're really taking her side? Dad didn't answer. He just sat down, eyes wet but calm. Noah's breath came hard and shallow. You think you're better than me, Sarah? You think this makes you good? I took a step closer, slow and deliberate. No. It makes me done. He stared at me, confused, angry, maybe scared. You'll regret this. I already did, I said softly. Every year you got what I never did. Attention, trust, a chance to belong. I stopped regretting when I realized you were never my competition. The thunder outside cracked, loud enough to shake the windows. Noah looked at Dad one last time, waiting for some kind of rescue that never came. Then he stormed out, slammed the door so hard the picture frames rattled. We listened to his car fade down the street. For a long time neither of us spoke. Then Dad said quietly, "He's gone." I nodded. "He'll be fine. People like him always find another way to lie." Dad looked at me, his eyes tired but finally clear. "But you didn't lie." That's when I realized, this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about finally being seen for who I'd always been. The good daughter. The quiet one. The one who remembered everything and forgave nothing. Months passed. Winter came early that year, the kind that makes the air smell like metal and old stories. Noah never came back to Dad's house. He didn't call, didn't write. But sometimes I'd hear updates from people who still whispered his name like a warning. He'd moved states, tried to start a new business under a different name, and failed. His record followed him like a shadow. Every door he knocked on had already heard the story. And the story always ended the same way: don't trust him. Dad and I started seeing each other more after that. It wasn't perfect. We were still strangers learning to speak a shared language. But there were moments. Like when he asked what kind of tea I liked, or when he called just to tell me the porch light had burned out. Small things but real. Sometimes we'd sit in silence together and I'd think, maybe love doesn't come in boxes after all. Maybe it comes in trying again even after everything's broken. One afternoon while cleaning the attic, Dad found a box labeled "Old Stuff, Sarah." Inside were my school drawings, birthday cards I made for him, and a photo from the lake trip. The same one that used to hang downstairs. Only this time the glass was replaced, the frame cleaned. He handed it to me and said quietly, "You always deserved better than what I gave you." And for the first time I believed him. That night I sat by my window watching the lights flicker across the street. I thought about Noah. Somewhere out there probably still blaming the world. And for the first time I didn't feel the need to watch him fall anymore. He'd already fallen, not because of me but because of who he chose to be. That was the real justice. The kind that doesn't need applause. The kind that happens when truth finally catches up. I opened my journal, the same one I'd used to plan everything, and wrote just one final line. Sometimes the best revenge is simply being free enough to never look back. Then I closed it, placed it in the drawer, and turned off the light. For the first time in years I slept through the night.